Welcome, everyone. Welcome. All right, my name is Charles T. Brown, Vice Chair of the Planning Board. Welcome to Wednesday, November 9th, 2022, Franklin Township of Somerset County, New Jersey, Planning Board Special Meeting. At this time, I want to read out the Sunshine Law, which states, in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this special meeting of the Board of the Planning Board of the Township of Franklin has been provided. Board members, applicants, professionals, and members of the public, please speak directly into microphones so that our recording secretary can properly process minutes. If you do not, you will be reminded each and every single time. Applicants and professionals, please fill out the sheet on the table when you have completed your testimony. Thank you. Now let's stand for the Pledge of the Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
All right, let's move to roll call.
Councilman Imbarson?
Here.
Carl Hauck?
Here.
Mahir Rafik? Here. Theodore Chase?
Here.
Jennifer Ragnow?
Here.
Mustafa Manzareh?
Here.
Charles Brown?
Here.
Robert Thomas?
Here.
And Mike Orsini has to be excused this evening.
All right. Now let's move to the regular minutes from August 3rd, 2022. Each of you should have received those, had a chance to look through them. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Move properly seconded.
Councilman Imbarson?
Yes.
Carl Hauck?
Yes.
Mahir Rafik?
Yes.
Theodore Chase?
Yes.
Jennifer Ragnow?
Yes.
Charles Brown?
Yes.
Robert Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you. Carries. So let's move now. No resolutions today. There is a discussion with Trap Rock.
Mr. Brown, I will not forget to hold a microphone because I don't want
Thank
to
you,
get
sir.
yelled at by you.
Thank you, sir.
This particular microphone, just for the record, the battery is shown as dead. Oh, there she is. All right. Let me make a brief introduction. Trap Rock, is being a quarry within our township, is required to get a permit, which it has now through 2024, and also when there are going to be changes in the use of the quarry, to file what's called a narrative with regard to a reclamation plan. And that plan changes from time to time, and right now it is being changed, and Mr. George Conway will describe the changes to you briefly. We have provided 30-some copies of the plan, 30-some copies of the narrative, which explains exactly what's going to happen. We will be brief, subject, of course, to your questions. The plans have been submitted. Ms. Woodbury would confirm that, in fact, we have provided notice as required by the ordinance for this meeting. Even though it's a discussion, thank you. Even though it's a discussion, we would like a vote at one point in time at the end, just for the board to affirm that they have received it, and you're not approving or disproving, you're just affirming. So, Mr. Conway, we should swear you in because you will be testifying. Why don't you stand, raise your right hand?
You swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please.
George M. Conway, Jr., C-O-N-W-A-Y.
Ms. Conway, have a seat. George, what's your position with regard to Trap Rock?
I'm in charge of the planning and mostly planning and future development of the quarry land of Trap Rock Industries.
And just so we don't have to give your age to anyone, you've been there more than 20 years.
I have.
There you go.
A lot.
And we're here tonight, as I indicated, Trap Rock, as it's required to do, has a license which is good through 2024. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Not that the board has to know that, but it fulfills our obligation. Now, we're here for the 2022 reclamation plan, which was previously submitted. You are going to describe briefly what the changes will be, even though they may not be done this year or next year. We get the affirmance of this board, and we give them the courtesy of telling them what we're going to do. So why don't you take it from here, George, just describe Either if you have to use the plan that has been delivered, we did not bring a computer, and we didn't think it was that type of an application that would have required it, and just briefly tell us what we're going to do, and then the board may ask you some questions.
That's fine. Last time I was here was in 2012, which was 10 years ago. And we just...
George, really close to your mouth.
Okay. Is this better? Yeah, so I'll start over. I appeared before you in 2012, and it's been 10 years since we updated the reclamation plan. We've included all the new buildings and conveyors and structures on this plan that weren't on the last plan 10 years ago. And the only other...
Excuse me. You said on this plan, just so the board is aware, we're talking about a quarry reclamation plan dash west 2022 reclamation plan, Kingston Quarry, Trap Rock Industries LLC, that looks like it's dated August of 2022, and there are approximately 13, was it George, 14? How many plans? 13 pages. And that's what Mr. Conway's going to refer to.
Welcome. Other than showing any new additional structures, conveyors, crushers on the plans, we've moved the future recreation area from the middle of the southern property line down to the southwest property line. The reason for us moving this recreation area to that location is we realize that all our roads and egress into the quarry is in this location, and sometime in the future, that would be the most proper place for this to be located, so you can get to the site easily. The second reason is that this is where the existing concrete sleeves are now in place for when we start discharge water to the Delaware Canal. And that's my testimony.
I think you spoke too long. Mr. Chairman and Board, Mr. Conway is here to answer any questions with regard to the submission.
Thank you. Board, any questions? Yes.
As I recall, several years ago, we had a very heavy storm in March that flooded the quarry, or at least that part of it where you have all of the equipment, and enough to flood out the Kingston Rocky Hill Road. And I just wondered if we had another such, would it flood the area that you show for recreation here if the reservoir there rose enough? I think the plans show that you only have a foot or two of freeboard above the proposed water level. So could the recreation area flood?
A couple of things have happened since that flood. The Somerset County came in and they redid 518 in that area. And part of the reason for the flood was all the water that was on 518 coming down that hill was being discharged into the quarry.
Yeah.
So they've changed that around, and all that water now coming down that hill is discharged into the, I think it's into the Millstone River. So, it was a lot of water coming in. The second thing is, the quarry itself didn't flood. The road is lower than the floor elevation of the quarry.
Oh.
So we were operating even when the 603 was flooded.
By the way, I wanted to comment, I've been told you'd retired, but you're still here.
Semi-retired.
Well, well, I have one more question to ask. When?
When will it be?
Do you have any idea?
I do not.
You do not, okay, because I know everybody around me will ask.
It'll be a long time.
Okay, I always heard it was 2041, but you think now it'll be past that?
No, it'll be way past that.
Oh. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. Anyone else?
Just one general question. I think that feeds off of Dr. Chase's question, which was, just so the board and anybody listening understands, this is by reclamation. This is basically kind of the plan of how the quarry could be used in the future when it's no longer being quarried. Is that an accurate
That's correct.
description?
Yes.
And then you're because, so this is not a site plan for some park in the quarry. This is, again, down the road, when the quarry's not quarrying, you basically have to have a plan for how it might be reused.
That's
and-
correct.
And reclaimed, if you will. And part of that concept plan is moving where this rec area might be.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Affirmation? Yeah.
I move that the board affirm that it has received and examined the reclamation plan as amended.
Councilman Barson?
Yes.
Carl Halk?
Yes.
Mahir Rafiq?
Yes.
Theodore Chase?
Yes.
Jennifer Ragnow?
Yes.
Mustafa Menzreh?
Yes.
Charles Brown?
Yes.
Robert Thomas?
Yes.
Sammy Shaban?
Yes. Thank you.
all very much.
Take care. At this time, we're going to open things up for general public comments. If you are here for McDonald's USA LLC PLN 22 00018, there will be a public comment section for that, but right now, just general public comments. There a motion to open it up for the public?
So moved.
All right. Anyone here for public comments? Seeing none?
Seeing no one coming forward, I move to close.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Let's now move into our first hearing, first and only, McDonald's USA LLC, PLN 22 00018. Right here, yeah. Just make sure you use that microphone.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Werner. I'm with the firm of Prime and Tuvel, representing the applicant, McDonald's USA LLC. The application before you this evening relates to property having a street address of 940 Easton Avenue. It's designated as Block 385, Lot 2.07 on the Township tax map. The overall property is currently developed with the Rutgers Plaza Shopping Center, but the specific site that the application relates to this evening is that portion occupied currently by a vacant Burger King restaurant. It was formerly Burger King with drive-through. We are proposing to demolish the existing structure and in its place construct an approximately 4,456 square foot McDonald's restaurant with dual side-by-side drive-through lanes. For that, we are seeking preliminary and final major site plan approval together with bulk variance and design waiver relief. I have with me tonight 3 witnesses that are going to go through the details of the application. First, you'll be hearing from the applicant's civil engineer, Tiago Duarte of Dynamic. Next, you'll be hearing from Craig Paraguay of Dynamic Traffic. He's applicant's traffic engineer. And finally, you'll be hearing from Matt Flynn of John McDonough Associates, who is applicant's professional planner and will be speaking to the variance relief that is being sought. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to our first witness. If the board prefers, we can have them all sworn in at this time or one by one.
One by one.
Okay, so if I could have Mr. Duarte come up first.
Good evening. Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record, please.
Tiago Duarte, D-U-A-R-T-E, principal at Dynamic Engineering. Business address is 50 Park Place, Newark, New Jersey.
Mr. Duarte, could you provide the board with a brief overview of your educational and professional background?
Yes, I graduated Rutgers University in 2011 with a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering. I've been practicing in the field of civil engineering, specifically land development, for the last 11 years. I am licensed in the state of New Jersey, and my license is current as of this evening.
He's accepted.
Thank you very much. And are you familiar with the plans and application materials that were submitted to the board?
Yes, very, very much so. I was the engineer who prepared the plans that were submitted with the application.
Okay, I see you have your computer with you, so would you like to, at this time, mark into evidence the exhibits that you will be referencing during your testimony?
Yes, I will be showing 3 exhibits. One was previously submitted. It's the aerial map from our site plan set, sheet 2. I'll just use that to segue into existing conditions, and I will have 2 additional. A2, which is a site plan rendering with today's date, and A3 is a colorized version of the architectural elevations that were submitted with the application.
All right, so if you want to go ahead and walk the board through what's being proposed, I believe beginning with that aerial that you just referenced.
So, the sheet is entitled Aerial Map. It's sheet C2 from the site plan set that was submitted. As you just heard, the subject site is a 27.4 acre parcel, which McDonald's is a leasehold for the northwest corner, and that's the subject of the application tonight. The site's located at 970 Easton Avenue. That's County Route 527. The site is accessed from Easton Avenue via a ingress-egress driveway, a single driveway in the center of the site, and also accessed from John F. Kennedy Boulevard, also central to the site, and that provides access to the overall shopping center. And those internal drive aisles are used to access the pad in question in the northwest corner. As noted, the site's fully developed. It is currently known as Rutgers Plaza. There are a number of commercial businesses there, namely Stop and Shop, which is the larger building on the right of the sheet, or to the right of the plan, and the vacant, previously existing Burger King, which is the existing condition of the northwest corner, where the subject application is proposed. Going right into A2, which is the site plan rendering. Basically a colorized version of what was submitted with the application, but we've superimposed the landscaping plan to give the board some frame of reference as to what is what on the application. The subject site, again, is located in the general business zone where a restaurant is a permitted use, so that is what we are proposing. The existing features on the pad site would be demolished as part of the proposal, so the existing building would be removed, the existing parking areas would be removed, lighting, curbs, sidewalks, anything that's surrounding that Burger King, the vacant building currently would be removed for the construction of a new McDonald's restaurant. The area of that building would be 4,456 square feet. In addition to the building, there would be a drive-through facility, which consists of 2 drive-through lanes that merge into one, and I'll get into the drive-through operations in a little bit. Additionally, we're proposing various sidewalk areas to provide access to the building and off-street parking surrounding the building. We're also proposing a 20 by 20 trash enclosure, masonry trash enclosure to the southwest of the building. That's the gray rectangle located just to
Can you zoom in on your plan?
Sure.
Thanks.
It's the rectangle to the bottom bottom left. The proposed building, again, will have 62 seats. The setbacks from the right-of-ways are all compliant with the bulk ordinance requirements. The lot coverage as part of the application, and just to clarify, there were a few items with building coverage and impervious coverage that are a little different than the site plan that was submitted, because it did incorporate some changes that are proposed on the overall lot, which, again, this is just an application for the McDonald's. So to clarify, the building coverage, 30% is permitted, and that's for the overall parcel. 22.5% exist today, and 22.5 are proposed. The areas are a little different, so there's 268,222 square feet, and that's the gross building areas that exist today, and the proposal is for 269,200 square feet. So a minor increase. The vacant building is about 970 square feet smaller than what is being proposed. So slight increase in the lot coverage as far as building for building area. Impervious coverage, 70% is permitted. The existing impervious coverage, again, for the overall parcel is 78.8%. That's 940,800 square feet. And the application proposes 78.1% for a total of 932,269 square feet. So a reduction of 8,500 square feet in impervious coverage.
So just to clarify, we're improving the condition of the impervious coverage, correct?
Yes.
It's still non-compliant, but better than it exists today?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
As far as parking, as in response to the planning memo that we received, we altered our parking calculation. So now that is based on the gross area for the shopping center instead of breaking it out for a restaurant use. So the required number of parking spaces is 1,192. We are, 1,196, sorry, for the overall development. The current condition, there's 1,257 spaces, so more than the requirement. And this proposal proposes removing 54 of those spaces for a total parking calc for the overall lot of 1,203.
So we're still compliant with what's required, correct?
Yes, correct. As far as the drive-through use itself, so the McDonald's experience is to, especially with COVID, has seen the drive-through usage spike. So in many of these sites, the drive-through usage for traffic entering the site is up to 2/3 of all traffic. So in prior years where traffic entering the site would park and then physically walk into the store and order in that manner, the trend is to order from your vehicle. So that is why any new development, any new McDonald's build will include the side-by-side drive-through to better serve that customer base that just wants to get in, get through the drive-through, pick up their order, and be on their way to their next destination. So the drive-through use will operate counterclockwise around the building. The pad, again, is accessed from the internal circulation aisles. You would go north past the building and then turn west and enter one of the two drive-through lanes. Each of those lanes has its own menu board and pre-browse board. So the lead car, which would be at the So each of those lanes will have a canopy, and as a canopy where you order. That lead car will have visibility of the primary menu board, which is forward of the canopy. The canopy is the tan color, tan rectangle in each lane. And then the pre-browse board is visible to the second car in line. Intent there is to increase efficiency, so the second car in line is already looking at a menu and vetting what they want to order. Once the orders are placed, the cars are then merged into one single lane. That's directed by the staff internal to the building, so the staff will tell which car to advance, and it all depends on, order size and how quickly the kitchen can put out the order. The ideal scenario being the drive-through lane keeps moving, so the smaller orders will progress more quickly, and then you won't have a blockage of the drive-through lane if there's a large order, and you can hold them in that lane there, in one of the two lanes, rather. So once your order is placed, you will merge back into one lane, and then you will have the pay window, self-explanatory. The customer will pay its staff in the window, and then they will proceed to the second window for a pickup. This building will also include a third window. That third window is, again, if there's a large order and they have to move it out of line, we could pull that car to that third window and station them there, while the second window would still be able to be accessed for order pickups, and then the car would be able to get out of line and exit the drive-through lane. As far as operations, the plan is for 24-hour operations. That could be potentially just the drive-through or include lobby, but the proposal is for 24 hours for the flexibility to adjust them as needed if the customer base is leaning one way or the other. Number of employees is typically up to 15 on the maximum shift. Deliveries would come on a two to three times per week basis. The truck would again access the site how all other traffic accesses it and stage in the drive aisle adjacent to the two drive-through lanes. That drive aisle is 20 feet, so it is wide enough to still be usable if there is a 10-foot or a 9-foot truck stationed there. It comes 2 to 3 times a week, off-peak hours, so it's usually before the morning rush or between the morning rush and the afternoon rush. Once on site, it's typically a 30-minute process for dropping off whatever is being delivered and exiting the site. Trash, similar, would be two times a week, usually in the morning, early morning. That can be adjusted as needed based on the demand. As far as other improvements to the site, so we will be providing new lighting in the McDonald's pad, as well as to the south. So that's the area just below the McDonald's. So that would be also illuminated to make sure that it complies with all the ordinance requirements for safety and circulation. Additionally, there will be all new utilities to the building. We plan on reusing the water connection that is currently there once we verify it's sufficient for the McDonald's use, and same for the sanitary, but everything up to the main would be replaced as a new line for the McDonald's. In addition, new electric, new gas lines, and new communication to serve the proposed building. As far as landscaping, we've got a generous design here that proposes 11 trees within the site, 280 shrubs, and 230 perennials and grass plantings. The subject site is located in DRCC Zone A, so it is in the process of being reviewed by the DRCC. We've had some back and forth with them, so they've also been reviewing the landscaping plan specifically to make sure that what we are proposing is acceptable to them, because they do have regulations on what plantings can be used in their area. As far as stormwater management, we comply as a major development with the reduction in impervious coverage. We comply with the quantity reduction requirements. As part of the DRCC review, we are required to provide water quality improvements. So beyond the reduction in impervious coverage, which is an improvement in the water quality, we're also proposing a manufactured treatment device, which will provide 80% TSS removals and total suspended solids, removing that from any runoff that will be exiting the pad site. Go to building elevations, just to quickly walk through. So this is the site, the elevations rendering by the architect. It's dated November 2nd, 2022. The design intent of the building is basically to bring a modern and warm atmosphere. The design really is earth tones, is to blend into the surrounding area and complement just the landscaping that we're proposing. There's a brick, just to quickly walk through the materials and what's proposed. It's a brick base with a metal coping system on the upper above the brick. There's glazing in the customer service areas, so that's the front elevation, the one with the windows. Then there's additional windows on the non-drive-through side of the building. That's, again, to bring light into the customer service areas. Then there's the 3 windows on the drive-through side, as well as some windows on the rear of the building where the service entrances are. There's an aluminum trellis system around the customer service areas, again, to highlight where the customer traffic should be focused and to highlight those entry points into the building. There are a number of signs proposed, so I'll walk through those now. On the front elevation, or the east facade of the building, there's a M logo, and that's for brand recognition and to accent the building, and a word mark, which is the block letters of the McDonald's spelled out, and that'll face interior to the overall lot. On the drive-through side, you just have a McDonald word mark. Again, that's just the block letters facing the south. That's the south facade of the building. The non-drive-through side, call that really the front facade that's facing Easton Avenue. We have the M logo and the McDonald's block letters. There is a variance required for the number of signs. 2 are required because there are 2 frontages, so you are permitted 1 per frontage. The proposal is for 6, just because there's so many access points to the site. It's just adding recognition to the building as to where it is and where the entry points are. And lastly, there's a M logo on the rear of the building, and that's the frontage facing JFK Boulevard.
While you're speaking to the signs, you noted that there was a variance with respect to the number of facade signs. Could you please walk the board through, and obviously our planner will speak to this in more depth, but the other variances that are also required in connection with the application?
Yes, yeah. And actually, on the topic of signage, the first variance I'll note is a freestanding sign. So right now we are proposing a freestanding sign located at the northwest corner of the lease area. It's a 25-foot overall height sign. It's a freestanding sign. And that is a variance where 1 sign is permitted. The overall shopping center has a large monument sign to the east of the driveway. This is the site driveway. To the east of that, there's a sign there for the overall property and highlights the different tenants in the commercial buildings. But this would be for McDonald's own freestanding sign for visibility from Easton Avenue, which is the main travel way. In addition to the freestanding sign, so there's the building signs, as I just mentioned, where 2 are permitted, 6 are proposed. There, in addition to the number of signs on the building, the facade area permits 30 square feet for signage, where the 2 elevations with the 2 signs have a proposed sign area of 46.8 square feet, so a slight increase of what's permitted. Additionally, another sign variance is the maximum vertical dimension. So the ordinance permits 3 feet, where 3.5 feet is proposed, and that's for the M logos. Those are all 3.5 feet tall, or high rather. And that's, again, it's a branding element that's proportional to the facade, highlights the key features of the building. And the impervious coverage, which I mentioned previously, so what's existing is 78.8%, where 70% is permitted. So that's an existing nonconformity that's being improved with the proposal. That'll come down to the 78.1%, as I mentioned earlier.
And I believe in addition to those variances, there were a couple design waivers required as well, correct?
Yes, so the design waivers are all from the township's commercial design standards. And I'll just go through those. So the loading and delivery requirement is for that to be separated from customer parking and pedestrian areas. Being a McDonald's, which again has deliveries 2 to 3 times a week, that would come during off-peak hours. The designated loading area, we just find it is not really warranted for such an intermittent use, or delivery window rather. So that's a waiver we're requesting, is to again permit the loading operation to happen in front of the building in that drive aisle, in the parking area and the drive-through lanes. Bicycle parking is also required as part of the design standards. The applicant does agree to provide a bike rack on the McDonald's pad to address that, so that will comply. That will not require waiver relief. Site amenities are another design standard that's required. It's a little unclear as to the ordinance. It kind of tends to highlight a new development, which this is really a redevelopment of an existing vacant use. So not sure if the site amenities really applies, but if it does, that's something that is being requested as far as waiver relief, since the McDonald's only controls the lease parcel that they're on, or the lease area that they're on. So they're not proposing improvements beyond their lease limits. Similarly, with the perimeter landscaping, that was noted as something that is required in the commercial design standards. Currently, there's perimeter landscaping on all, basically along both frontages. There are areas where there's some gaps, but they're minor and not the continuous landscaping buffer that the ordinance is requiring. But those, again, are off the McDonald's lease area, so that, again, is something that we're asking for waiver relief from. Lastly, in addition to the site amenities, site furnishings are also required as part of the design standards. That we're requesting a waiver from that for the fact that, again, it's a McDonald's lease area, so that we're focused really on our northwest corner of the site, but we are going to agree to provide that bike rack to be an additional amenity to the customers.
Okay. Have you had a chance to review the review letters that were authored by the board's professionals?
Yes, we have.
Okay, and notwithstanding the variance and waivers we're obviously requesting, do you see any issue working with the board's professionals in addressing their comments?
No, we can agree to address the remainder of the comments that I haven't touched upon in testimony with the professionals.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions for Mr. Duarte. If the board has any questions, or if you would prefer to hold until after you hear from all of our witnesses.
I do want to pause to see if there are questions at this time.
Did you address number in the comments, few comments, number 5, the sidewalk? Did I?
No, you're correct, yes. So as part of the application, but currently,
Up there it goes.
so the application currently, I believe currently before the zoning board for the landlord's overall proposal for the site, includes a new sidewalk from the Easton Avenue right-of-way up to the existing sidewalk that's on site just to the south of the McDonald's. That sidewalk doesn't exist today, and it's proposed to provide ADA access from the right-of-ways as required. So yes, the applicant agrees, whichever application is under construction first, they would agree to provide that sidewalk.
Okay, then that's probably you, because
Yes.
there is no application officially or the zoning board. So there's no sidewalk officially proposed by anybody.
Got it. So yes, that would be included in what's proposed tonight.
Councilman Chase?
In your demolition plan, you show removal of the 3 maple trees along the access driveway from Easton Avenue, and then eventually replanting, I think, locust trees there. And so why are you removing those 3 trees? It's always better to keep existing trees.
Agree, and that's something we will try to revisit. The removal is really required as part of the grading design. Usually so there's a 10-foot grade differential from the south of the property, the south of the pad rather, from south to north. There's a 10-foot grading, so we had to cut in some areas, and that results in tying back into the grades out in Easton Avenue. But that's something we will revisit and see if there's anything we can do to keep that, especially with the proposed sidewalk, because there's going to be some additional retaining walls needed. So if we can preserve that grading as is to not that negatively impact those trees, we would definitely keep them.
So to the extent that we don't have to remove them, we won't.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And I note in the commentary from the Delaware and Raritan Canal Commission, they examine your proposed trees and include on page 10 of those comments, the applicant is directed to omit all non-native species from the proposed landscaping plan and substitute native species from the commission lists of native trees and shrubs or species native to Somerset County on the U.S. Department of Agriculture plants database. So I trust that you're going to do that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, we will comply with that.
I think that's everything I had.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
The 2 walkways from the end that go across the drive through parking area, how are you going to set them off so that there's awareness of, there's awareness on a part of the drivers that people are walking, possibly? You say, I understand your the concept of it's a drive-through facility, not so much sit-down restaurant anymore, but you still need to have something there.
So in addition to, the striped crosswalks, we will provide additional signage to yield to pedestrians, signage and striping in the pavement. If
We can work with your professionals to, with their recommendations, how they would like to see it resolved, or if you have something specific you'd like to see. But right now, the plan is for additional striping and signage to make sure it's, designated walkways and such for the pedestrians. That also alerts the drivers.
Well, you can work with the professionals. My opinion would be, I like to see maybe one wider walkway rather than 2, but have it be raised, different surface. One that comes to mind is with brick pavers. Township professionals have something different or better, that's fine with me. But something that's, sometimes I don't think just painted lines catch everyone's attention when they're probably looking forward to reading the menu on the signboard.
Absolutely.
I will say, just from a grading and stormwater perspective, that the raised crosswalks tend to be an issue. So we absolutely would look at potentially a different material, again, to highlight that, hey, this is a crosswalk. That's something we'll definitely look at in widening it as well.
Thank you.
So you're saying that there are crosswalks. Are they, I don't see them reflected on the plan. You're saying you're going to provide them?
There's currently one on the east side of the building, so right. So that's one crosswalk from the sidewalk that's coming from Easton Avenue. If thinking we would add another one here, again, just to highlight this is where the pedestrian traffic should be funneling to get up to the building. That's where the main entrances are.
And if customers are parked on the west or south side in those, how do they get to the building?
They would have to walk around the drive-through.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Dwart, but those spaces that are, I guess, parallel to the drive-through windows, it is McDonald's practice, I believe, to designate those for mobile order pickups as well, correct?
Yeah, usually the spaces to the west of the building or behind the building or on the drive-through side are the least used, because again, they're a little more challenging to get to the building, or there's a further walk. So yes, we think we could designate those as employee spaces if board requests.
Well, the concern is not employee parking. The concern is that it is a very auto-centric design. It isn't designed as if you have a multitude of modes coming there. It's designed as if only automobiles are coming there. And human behavior would definitely increase the likelihood that a pedestrian would want to access the site from JFK without having to circle the entire building to get there, as well as exit the building somehow to JFK. So there should be, I think, increased pedestrian access to the site with strong consideration given for ADA accessibility as well. Because right now it's very auto-centric, and the entrances for pedestrians are basically hidden and protected by cars.
Sure, yeah, we could look at extending the sidewalk that ends at this westernmost door and extending it so there is a connection, so you don't have to walk around the drive-through.
But it's not just a connection out into your driveway, it's a connection to the sidewalk on JFK.
Understood.
Okay.
Definitely something we can look at, and if you're comfortable, work with your professionals for a satisfactory design.
Okay. Anyone else? Also, I think more dignity should be given to the bicycle parking. There's a lot of spaces here, perhaps providing some covered parking. Many of the employees who work in fast food restaurants are not car owners. A significant share do arrive by bicycle. So dignifying the ability to park their bikes securely, I think, should be a strong consideration.
We can certainly do that. We were already planning to add bicycle parking, so again, we can work with your professionals to ensure it's the type of bicycle parking you're looking for.
Any other comments?
A few more questions.
All right.
So the design standards that talks about the perimeter landscaping. So in a nutshell, I think your landscaping plan consists of keeping the larger trees that are there along both JFK and Easton Avenue. You said you were going to look at the corner or the entrance on Easton Ave and see if you can save that existing landscaping and those three maples. And then you are proposing some additional landscaping in the form of a hedge along Easton Avenue. I think the one way in which you don't fully address the design standards is you don't have that same hedge going along JFK. Is there a reason why you couldn't propose that, or you're not proposing that?
From a grading perspective, the site's lower than the roadway, but that's something we can add if the board requires it. Along that parking row, you mean?
And did you speak about site lighting?
I believe you touched on the fact that we
did.
can comply with the lighting on the site and then also in that area just south of the pad.
Yes, correct.
Because I did my review a little while ago, so I'd asked that you demonstrate the sufficiency of the lighting levels in the parking area immediately to the south of the McDonald's, because I think you were concentrating on the McDonald's, and I don't believe there was too much concentration, because part of your application is to redesign the parking lot immediately to the south of the McDonald's. And then the second question was, is there going to be continuous or compatible lighting levels with the rest of the shopping center?
Yes,
Can you address?
there would be. So lighting will be expanded to include that area to the south of the building, and it will also be compatible to what's proposed on the pad so that there's no drastic change between the two areas.
You're saying compatible in terms of the overall lighting levels, like the foot candles are not going to be, there's not going to be a dramatic difference between the rest of the shopping center
Yes.
and the McDonald's?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Last question is regarding the sign. What was the reason, the justification for the freestanding sign? I think you say 25 feet high, is that correct? It certainly appears to be overkill considering there's already a very large sign there. I would be hesitant to set a precedent for this, in my opinion, considering the amount of clutter we will have along that corridor, making it perhaps less attractive than what you're trying to make it?
Yeah, understood. So the 25 feet really was to highlight that there's a McDonald's at the location. That's why it's located at that northwest corner, just to bring attention to the site and the use that's on the corner. If the 25-foot is something that's an issue, I mean, we can consider or propose a smaller monument-style sign, so the overall height would come down to 7 feet.
I mean, you're already elevated off of the road where everyone can see you, so to add an additional sign is overkill, perhaps. I don't know what the board feels, but I think it's overkill. A smaller sign saying, here's McDonald's, everyone in the world would know McDonald's is there anyway, so I don't know how we can move on.
Well, I think they are going to have to provide planning testimony, and just
Okay.
to set up that testimony, what they're going to have to prove to the board is really one of two things, that there's some hardship that this variance would be addressing, or that the variance that they're requesting for that second sign is a better zoning alternative than a compliance situation. So that's what the planner's going to have to prove to you.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions, comments? Yes.
Yeah, I agree with Charles. I have a little bit of a concern of the standalone sign. To the point that, you're quite visible for the elevation, and it's aesthetically, I don't believe it goes with the neighborhood to have a standalone sign
Okay.
of any level.
We'll present the testimony of our
Right.
planner, and then, if we haven't swayed you, I think we can have the discussion at
Thank
that
you.
point. We're not going to let a sign hold up the entire application.
We understand. We have one more we'll move to.
In line with the sign, I could almost see monument sign at the Kennedy Boulevard entrance, people coming from Amwell Road or Hamilton Street toward Easton Avenue aren't going to necessarily know that there's McDonald's in that shopping center. I don't believe there's any signage on that part. By the time those people get to the corner where the light is, we're forcing them to turn onto Easton Avenue and then make a turn off Easton Avenue if they want to go to McDonald's. I'm not saying that that's what you should do. I'm just throwing that out as another idea for discussion. Instead of a 25-foot high sign on the corner, maybe put your 6-foot monument at entrance. I don't know. There's
Right.
7 other board members.
If there are no other questions or comments, call the next witness.
Thank you very much. My second witness is Craig Paraguay of Dynamic Traffic. If we could have him sworn in at this time.
Mike, yeah.
Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please, for the record.
Sure. My name is Craig Paraguay, Peregoy, business address 245 Main Street, Chester, New Jersey.
Thank you. Mr. Paraguay, could you please begin by providing the board with a brief overview of your educational and professional background?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Virginia Tech. I'm a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey and been working as a traffic engineer for over 20 years now.
Thank you very much.
I know that I drive by this site twice a day, every day. I know the site very well. I live in Piscataway.
So in addition to being familiar with the site, you're familiar with the application that was submitted, correct?
Yes,
And you prepared the traffic impact assessment that accompanied that application?
we did.
Okay. Could you please just provide an overview of the findings contained within that assessment?
Yeah, sure. We do these a lot for McDonald's. Usually it's a rebuild of an existing McDonald's restaurant to add this second double drive-through in to make the improvements. In this case, it's a little unique because it's a vacant Burger King, but we do have the McDonald's right across the street, so we were able to use that to sort of gauge the type of traffic that you could anticipate over here. We do counts at all of these, and in this case here too, during the weekday morning, breakfast time period, weekday lunch time period, weekday dinner time period, and Saturday lunch time period. We're looking at how much traffic goes in and out of McDonald's, how much of it uses the drive-through, how many people park, how many cars stack behind the order board. And the goal is to make sure that when the double drive-through is implemented, that it fits. Again, this is a little unique because we're sort of transposing it across the street, but it's the same sort of idea. Obviously, you had historically a Burger King there, I remember, years ago. So it's the same type of situation here. We really found the McDonald's across the street, and from what I remember, the Burger King operates in a fairly typical fashion, and what we've proposed here, I think, would certainly handle that that traffic volume and that flow. I heard the conversation about the pedestrian access, bicycles, and all good points, and I agree. I think all that is certainly doable and makes sense. I'll leave the sign discussion for later, although I do like your suggestion of the one on JFK. But essentially, yeah, this is not going to create any sort of detrimental traffic impact. Obviously, you had the Burger King there. I guess they're not going to sell Christmas trees in that lot anymore, though. I got my first Christmas tree when my wife was there. It's pretty funny. But certainly, this is a positive, I think. I think we can all agree that seeing that vacant building Burger King go is a good thing. That's really it.
Just my last question, and would it be your professional opinion that the internal circulation on the site will operate functionally as well?
Absolutely, 100%. Like I said, we do a lot of these, and this one is so we had a decent amount of space here to make it right.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions for this witness.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Dr. Chase?
You're basing your traffic assessment on the traffic at the existing McDonald's and saying, well, in effect, you'd just be moving the traffic from one McDonald's to another. But if the existing McDonald's ceases to be a McDonald's, but if it becomes some other use, then there will be traffic to that site. So that in that sense, this will represent an increase in at least the current traffic, maybe not an increase related compared to what it was when there was an active Burger King, but at least it's an increase in the current traffic, but probably minimal compared to the normal traffic on Easton Avenue.
Yeah, very minimal. And realistically, most of, typically, especially for a drive-through fast food, it's pulling that traffic that's already on Easton Avenue in to stop and get their, continue on their way.
I just have one other comment that just stuck in my mind. Are you aware that in Yosemite National Park, there is an area called Paraguay Meadows, and that's the only other time I've ever seen that name.
I did not know that. That's fantastic.
It's up above the valley. It's to the north of Yosemite Valley.
Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Chase, for that little known history.
Spelled the same way.
All right. A lot of wisdom up here. A lot of wisdom. Yeah.
Great memory.
That's right. Anyone else relative to traffic? Wait, or the prior? Seeing none.
All right.
That's the first. Let's
Thank you.
move on to the next one.
Thank you. My third and final witness I have is Matt Flynn of John McDonough Associates, and he is the applicant's professional planner. If I could have him sworn in at this time.
Sure.
There we go. Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record, and while you're doing it, bring the microphone up a little bit, because otherwise
sorry.
Christine gets really upset.
Yep. Matthew Flynn, Flynn. Business address is 101 Gibraltar Drive, Morris Plains, New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Could you start out by providing the board with your educational and professional background?
Sure. My education comes from Rutgers. I have my master's degree in planning and public policy. I have my professional planner's license in the state of New Jersey, as well as my national certification, which is the AICP, both of which are in good standing.
Have you testified in front of land use boards before?
I have.
And your license are current?
They are.
We would ask that he be accepted. Thank you very much. Have you had a chance to review the plan submitted in connection with the application this evening?
I have.
And have you had a chance to review the the township's land development ordinance and the master plan?
Yes.
And you're familiar with the bulk variance and design waiver relief we're requesting?
Yes.
Could you please provide an analysis of the relief requested, together with your professional opinion whether such relief is justified under the MLUO?
Sure. So as the board knows by now, we are looking at Block 385, Lot 2.07, with frontage on both Easton Avenue as well as JFK Boulevard. We are a pad site on that existing shopping center in that northwest corner of that shopping center. And we do have that leased area that is specifically for the McDonald's. So some of these variances, and I'll get into this, are actually related to the entire shopping center property and not just that McDonald's leased area, which our engineer did touch on. And I'll just jump right into the C variances. First would be number of facade signs. We're proposing 6, and you're only allowed 1 per frontage. We have 2 frontages, so we would be permitted to have 2 facade signs. Again, we're proposing 6. As our engineer testified to, there are multiple entrance points on this building, so the facade signs, I think, make sense in terms of accenting some of those entrance points. And I'll get further into detail on all of these, but just to list them out quickly. Facade sign area, we're proposing 3 facade signs that don't meet that 30 square foot requirement. They're over in terms of square footage. We're looking at square footages of 46.8 square feet as well as 32.8 square feet. The next C variance, maximum vertical dimension for the attached M logo sign. We're looking at 3.5 feet as a vertical dimension, and you're allowed up to 3 feet. Number of freestanding signs, 2 versus 1. You're allowed one freestanding sign. And the only reason we're proposing 2 is because one of those is related to that existing shopping center. And really only 1 freestanding sign is going to serve the proposed McDonald's. So I think that the zoning intent for that regulation requiring 1 freestanding sign is met in that there will be 1 freestanding sign serving this McDonald's. And just, I'm not sure if there was some confusion. The variance is related to number of freestanding signs, not dimension of same or height or square footage or anything like that. And then finally, a variance for impervious coverage, 78.1% is being proposed versus 70%, which is permitted. Again, that's actually an improvement over what's there today. We are actually decreasing that impervious coverage. So as I think your counsel mentioned, or maybe it was your professional, there's basically 2 ways that we look at C variances, one of which is known as the C2 balancing test, and basically to satisfy that test, the question is, do the benefits of the application as a whole outweigh any of the detriments? In terms of benefits, we are looking at a permitted use. Restaurants are a permitted use in this zone. All of the variances are related to improving efficiency and site identification and brand recognition on this property. None of the variances are really related to overly branding this property. They're really related to an applicant that knows how to run this type of business properly, with a lot of real-world experience as to the number of signs and the placement of signs, et cetera, that work for that safe and efficient traffic circulation and use of the property. And of course, improved aesthetics. We're bringing that underutilized Burger King, vacant Burger King building back to life with a productive use. So all of the above, I think, promote purpose A of the municipal land use law, which would be to promote the health, safety, and welfare. In this case, all of those operational efficiency benefits are going to directly benefit patrons of this property. Purpose C, provision for adequate light and air. We're not requesting any setback variances or any height variances, and that shopping center that's there today is going to remain exactly the way that it is now. Purpose G, variety of uses in appropriate locations. Again, we're looking at a use that was very similar to this one, if not identical, in terms of the use of the property. And Purpose I, desirable visual environment. Again, we're looking at facades that are really conducive to that contemporary McDonald's, which is what's, as our traffic engineer mentioned, it's kind of what's being proposed all over for these McDonald's restaurants. So all of that would go towards the benefits or the positives of the application. So to balance that out with the negatives or the potential detriments, I'll just read quickly the statement from the sign ordinance. Basically, promote signs which are orderly and readable, compatible with surroundings, expressive of the identity of the individuals or proprietors, complementary to the character of the community, and not distracting to motorists, and discourage signs that represent an overloaded, overstated system of graphics, contribute to visual pollution, obviously signs that are in disrepair, and signs that would advertise an activity that's no longer there. So I think that all of those purposes from the sign ordinance are met. All of the signs, like I said, are conducive to that contemporary McDonald's look. We saw the elevations. We saw that these signs really are proportional, not representing over-branding, in my opinion. They're all very tasteful and simple. And also in terms of the negative criteria or the potential detriments to the zone plan or to the public, front setback is actually increasing slightly by 2.5 feet. As I said, impervious coverage is decreasing, and the FAR for the proposed McDonald's is actually decreasing as well. I'm sorry, the FAR is actually increasing, but still conforming. Finally, also parking complies. We're not requesting a parking variance, and none of the variances are for a building that's too large or for a deficient parking area. There's no outstanding issues in terms of stormwater management or lighting. So I think that having said all of that, the benefits of the application certainly outweigh any of the detriments. And there is that second test for C variances, which is the C1 hardship test. In this case, there are some C variances that relate to the existing land and the existing buildings that are thereon, that are legally existing and are actually to remain or to be improved, such as that impervious coverage and the number of freestanding signs. That's really a function of the sign that's already there. So having said all that, I think that all of the variances are justified by the C2 balancing test, and then some of them are also justified by that C1 hardship test. And I don't think that there are any detriments to the zone plan. I think that all of the signs are, again, very tasteful and really promote an attractive building. So with that, I think I can close.
Thank you very much, Mr. Flynn. I have no further questions for this witness.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I didn't understand this, the hardship. It said there's a hardship relative to the existing freestanding sign. Can you explain that?
Right, so you're, based on the ordinance, you're allowed one freestanding sign per property, and I think that there is kind of a, I think that the intent of that zoning requirement is to have one sign for each building. In this case, we have a shopping center that has all of their businesses on their freestanding sign. And here we're looking at a pad site in a separate building, and there is still one freestanding sign proposed for that McDonald's. Or, in other words, I guess if it were subdivided out, the variance would no longer be required. So it's a variance that's resultant from the existing sign that's there. So we're not actually proposing two, we're proposing one, which is what would be allowed.
Did you describe or get to the directional signage and the variances related to that?
I believe Mr. Dort touched on that. We're going to comply with the directional sign requirements so we can eliminate that variance.
Okay, both in terms of the corporate logo and the size?
Yes,
Okay.
that's fine.
All right, thank you.
Comments, questions? The board?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Down here.
Given the fact that this site is going to be mostly drive-through and we have a lot of parking, is there any other way, because it is admirable that this is slightly lower from an impervious standpoint, is there a way to reduce that even further to get closer to our standard? Given that it seems like a lot of parking spaces that won't be used and a lot of area that won't be used?
That would be a question, I believe, best answered by our engineer, but if Mr. Flynn wants to try to take a
Sure,
shot at
it could
it.
be answered by him too, if you'd like to stop, because he's already been sworn in.
Yeah, I'll look to Tiago for that. The only thing that I'll say to that is that, again, that impervious coverage variance relates to the entire site and not just the McDonald's.
Tiago, if you'd like to come up and provide your insight.
Yeah, just on that comment, again, since it is, the overall site is just shy of 1.2 million square feet. So to meet that requirement, we basically have to eliminate the entire pad.
Yeah, I didn't mean to meet it, I just meant edging us closer, right? So you're edging closer, like we're always trying to get closer to our standards. Just if there's anything that could be done, it just sounds like there's going to be a lot of empty parking spaces surrounding this building from what I could see on the plan. And from what you're telling me, that over 2/3 of the expected clients are going to be drive-through.
Yeah, it's something we could definitely look at. I would just say we wouldn't want to get to the scenario where it's detrimental and triggers a variance relief if, we're getting rid of parking. So we could look to get rid of some of those spaces that would be lesser used on the back sides of the building.
Let me ask the question in a different way. The number of spaces I understand that you meet the parking requirement for the site as a whole, which is appreciated. But I know we've heard over the years that, their parking requirements for retail has been going down. If you look at this pad site kind of by itself, and it'll serve really as a kind of a standalone site. If you have approximately 60 seats, a typical standard would be one parking space for every 3 seats, I believe. That would require about 20 spaces. Have you had a conversation with your client? What does McDonald's actually need, I guess is the question. For a parking lot or for McDonald's of this size, do you need 23,
There's 50.
23, 34, you're in the 40s in terms of the number of spaces. Do they actually need that for their operation?
Typically, it's between the 30, 40. So yes, it's overparked, and the intent of that really was to comply with the overall, to not trigger a variance for the overall lot, where 1,196 spaces are required, and 1,203 are proposed. So we can reduce to that requirement. So it'd be 7 spaces we could lose without triggering a variance. That would get us to the 42 on the McDonald's pad.
And Peter, I'm going to look to you, but I mean, my understanding is in the course of, if an additional variance results from a board discussion, the board can grant that variance if it flows from their review of the application.
Typically, if they have the catch-all language in their notice, which I'm assuming that the applicant does have, because I know the applicant's office. So yes, if the board were inclined to grant them additional variance relief that they decided would be appropriate for the application that came up during the course of the application, that is something that the board is capable of doing.
Okay, so and the reason I mention that is, what I would suggest is, let's not necessarily concentrate on meeting the absolute every last parking space for that shopping center. If McDonald's only needs, 10 less spaces, then let's provide 10 less spaces and reduce the number, reduce the parking or the impervious even more, and then also more opportunity for screening, and I think a better site plan.
Yeah, agreed. Other questions? Go ahead.
But with that said, I appreciate the applicant looking at our ordinance and trying to meet it.
Yeah, except on the signage, which we got to talk about.
Well, that's
but,
enough.
Yeah. Others? Comments, questions? Dr. Chase?
So I take it that you're not going to advertise the McDonald's in the existing shopping center sign along Eastern Avenue?
No, there's no panel that's going to be dedicated to the McDonald's on the existing multi-tenant sign, hence McDonald's requesting the variance for their own freestanding sign so that they have something other than those arches and the McDonald's letters on the side of the building.
Now, I think most people recognize the golden arches.
They do. Again, the building that's proposed is set back farther than the existing building, so really it's just to, ensure there is some visibility from Easton. Again, we're willing to reduce that to a monument sign. We'd landscape the base of it, work with your professionals to make sure the monument is, consistent with something the township would want to see.
That sounds like a good idea. I realize I forgot to call Mr. Duarte's attention to the recommendations of the Environmental Commission, particularly the one about either having solar panels on the roof or a green roof.
We're going to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's the white top roof for the cooling measures.
Good,
Yeah.
good. That's something at least.
Yes, that is proposed by applicant.
I could just ask a question on the signage over here. Hi.
I'm like, there's so many people.
Yeah, no worries. So just to be clear, so you're asking for a second sign, but on that first sign, is there space to put a McDonald's? Like, do you have appropriate space or any space on that?
It is our understanding that under the lease agreement, a panel is not being made available to McDonald's.
Because it's the pad site, so it's seen as sort of enough, I guess.
I suppose I can't speak for the landlord
Okay.
and wasn't involved in the negotiations, but
Okay.
the panel wasn't offered
I've
up.
seen that before, that the pad sites don't get onto the pylons because they are pad sites. It's enough of
Yep.
a flag, so to say.
I have a question. Were there handicap parking?
There will be handicap parking.
Was it on there?
I believe it's
We'll
on
just
there.
take a
If
look at
not, Tiago, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's 3 spaces proposed.
Yes, so there's three ADA spaces proposed based on the 50 around the McDonald's.
And where are they relative to the entrance?
They comply with the requirement where they are the closest parking spaces to the doors. So we have just to the green, the blue painted spaces where the cursor is circling.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions?
As long as it was brought up about removing 10 parking spaces, where might that be accomplished under this? This is a little different than a usual application because it's part of a whole shopping center, whole retail center, but
So we would remove them from the McDonald's pad because that's the area that we have the control over. And we would remove the spaces that would be least used, so to the rear of the building where.
what you call employee parking.
Correct. But again, since we are overparked, there'd still be sufficient number of spaces. Because currently around the building, there are 50. So we'd probably get rid of some of the ones nearest to the trash enclosure on either of these 2 banks at the bottom of the screen and on the left side of the screen.
Yeah, keeping in mind the pedestrian connection that needs to be made.
Yes, correct.
Right.
Any other questions before we open it up to the public?
If you remove them rather from those along the entrance driveway from Eastern Avenue, it would make the grading easier, and it would probably make the building more visible.
Eastern Avenue driveway, these spots with the yellow striping? Or do you mean to the south along the?
That's to the driveway that comes up from Eastern Avenue to the east of the proposed building.
One's opposite the ADA.
So those are actually, one of the more used spaces, and that's where McDonald's would have anybody who's got a very large order and wouldn't be able to stage at that third window. They'd ask them to physically pull out a line and wait if somebody has to run something from the building to those spaces.
And
But they
Tiago,
would be
can
past those spaces by the time they got to the window. I could think you'd want spaces of that nature after the order window.
It is, so you'd have to circulate the site twice in that scenario, where you're asked to remove yourself from the queue in the drive-through lane.
Tiago, could you also just point out where the front entrance door is in relation to the parking spaces that we're discussing?
Sure, I'll actually flip back to here. So the front door. Front door is directly under that M arch. This is the front, so the ADA parking would be directly in front of this facade, and the front door is under that M.
And those spaces we're discussing are located directly across from there, correct?
Yes.
Of course, if you're going to have M arches on all sides of the building, that's not very descriptive.
It's also highlighted with the white canopy above it, but yeah.
Will both doors be accessible? I know during COVID, a lot of locked doors nowadays. Is the intent for both doors to be accessible at all times?
Yes, in general, unless we can't have all doors be accessible.
Okay.
The standard is to make them all accessible.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none. Open it up to the public. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
It's now open to the public. Anyone here to speak on behalf of this application, please come up to the mic. Please state your name and give your address.
Terry Thorson, 18 Labed Drive, Somerset. You stole my thunder. Everything I had written here, almost everything, got taken. The green roof, the number of parking spaces, since it's supposed to be basically a drive-through. But there are a couple things I was thinking about. If the rest of the property gets developed the way we think it might go, there's going to be foot traffic coming from the apartments over. A lot of kids walking. The current abandoned building, the McDonald's that's already on Easton Avenue, the Wendy's that's across the street from it, all have traffic on 3 sides of the building. They come in one driveway, go across the back, come out the other way, pick up their food, and leave. This one has the traffic going around 4 sides of the building, which seems to me to be something that would be a problem if you have people walking over there. Basically, that was it. I'm really concerned with the impervious surface. I mean, why do we have standards if we keep granting variances? And I think every time we have a replacement building, we have an opportunity to get back to what the township really wanted, that 70%. Remember when we have bad storms, we have trees floating up Easton Avenue, okay? So that in this area, it's anytime you not increase, but you decrease it a tiny little bit, it might help. But we really need to decrease the impervious area, especially near Easton Avenue, quite a bit. And I'm wondering, would this building be within the 1,000 feet of the canal? Because the Delaware Raritan Canal Commission might have something to say about that.
That commission will, okay. Anyone want to respond to that? The comment we have is that that commission will review the application. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Are McDonald's franchises? Are they franchises?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, do they know there's a McDonald's diagonally across the street, a Wendy's right across the street, and a diner on the corner?
They do their research when they're looking into spots, so I assure you they're aware, and they find this site to be suitable despite whatever else is located within the region.
I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Thank you. Others? Anyone else? Get greater participation from the public. Someone else come forward. Anyone else?
Young people?
I almost thought I was in Rutgers again. I was going to call you up here. No, it's great to see the public come out, and it's good to see you again, ma'am. Thanks for coming. Anyone else have any comments, questions? Is there a motion to close?
Yeah. Motion to close. Seeing no others.
Moving properly second. Any other questions, comments on this? Or motion?
My question was, we talked about eliminating parking spaces. Did we come up with a number, or did we?
I heard 10 being floated.
Yeah, exactly. I just didn't know if 10 was a number we were throwing out, if that was a discussion item. I just, as you guys know, at some point, assuming the board might be inclined to approve it, I need to know what exactly it is everybody agreed to. So, council, is there a number that the applicant had indicated would be workable?
We would prefer to eliminate 7 so as to not create a variance, keeping in mind, of course, that this is an overall shopping center count. So should another tenant come into one of the retail spaces in the overall shopping center, we want to ensure that that future tenant has adequate parking. I don't know what their needs would trigger, so we don't want to be responsible for underparking the site.
That was 7.
If I could just, so, over here again, hi.
I got it.
So what is the number that we currently have, and what is the number that you think you'll need? I'm just saying irrespective of the greater picture.
For just the McDonald's?
Just the McDonald's, what number do we currently have, and what number do you think you need?
So there's 50 around the building?
50.
50. And as I said, just testified to, the range for new builds is usually 30 to 40.
Okay.
So if we eliminate 7, we'll be at 43, so only very slightly overparked from what McDonald's typically requires.
Your motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application, subject to all of the terms and conditions that we discussed, including the elimination of 7 parking spaces.
May I just clarify that in terms of the freestanding sign, is that approval for the monument style?
Monument.
Or okay, thank you.
Seconded.
Who just said that? Oh. Councilman Abarson?
Yes.
Carl Halk?
Yes.
Mahir Rafik?
Yes.
Theodore Chase?
Yes.
Jennifer Ragnow?
Yes.
Mustafa Manzari?
Yes.
Charles Brown?
Yes.
Robert Thomas?
Yes.
And Sammy Shaban?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. We greatly appreciate it.
You. All right, we have no committee reports, work session or new business, no executive session. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, enjoy your week.